The abandoned warrior. The acrid stench of burning metal and scorched earth filled the air as Zarek, a towering Kreldoran warrior, surveyed the ravaged battlefield. His 4 arms, each gripping a different weapon, were covered in a mixture of oil and the silvery blood of his fallen comrades. The planet Nexus 7, once a lush garden world, had become the latest frontline in the galaxy's war against the Mechon, a relentless army of self-replicating machines bent on eradicating all organic life. Zarek's compound eyes scanned the horizon, watching as Kreldoran dropships screamed across the sky, their hulls skirted by Mechon energy weapons. His mandibles clicked in agitation. The battle was not going well. The Kreldoran, long considered one of the most formidable warrior races in the galaxy, were being pushed back by the tireless machine horde. "Commander Zarek," a voice crackled through his neural implant. "The western flank is collapsing. We need reinforcements." Zarek's upper arms tightened around his plasma rifle and graviton hammer. "Hold your position, Sergeant. I'm on my way." Without hesitation, he charged across the battlefield, his powerful legs propelling him over debris and fallen soldiers. As he ran, Zarek's mind drifted to the teachings that had been ingrained in him since hatching. The Kreldoran way was one of strength, honor, and unwavering loyalty to the Hive. Weakness was not tolerated. Failure meant death or exile. It was a harsh philosophy, but one that had served their species well for millennia. Reaching the western flank, Zarek found a scene of chaos. Mechan walkers, their metal limbs glinting in the harsh sunlight, were tearing through the Kreldoran defenses. Without hesitation, he leaped into the fray, his weapons blazing. "For the Hive!" Zarek roared, his voice carrying over the din of battle. His plasma rifle spat superheated bolts, melting through Mechan armor, while his graviton hammer crushed those that got too close. For a moment, it seemed as though his presence might turn the tide. But the Mechon were relentless. For every machine Zarek destroyed, 2 more took its place. His fellow Kreldorans fought bravely, but they were outgunned and outmaneuvered. As Zarek watched another dropship fall from the sky, he knew the battle was lost. "All units, fall back to Extraction Point Alpha." The order came through, emotionless and final. Zarek felt a moment of relief. They would live to fight another day. Then it happened. As he turned to follow his retreating comrades, a Mechon energy beam struck him squarely in the back. Pain exploded through his body as he fell, his exoskeleton cracking under the impact. Zarek tried to stand, but his legs wouldn't respond. He could only watch as his fellow Kreldorans ran past him, their eyes avoiding his fallen form. "Wait," Zarek called out, his voice weak. "I can still fight. I just need help too." But no one stopped. No one even looked back. In the Kreldoran way, to fall in battle was to be left behind. Resources could not be wasted on the weak or injured. It was a truth Zarek had always accepted, had even enforced himself in past battles. But now, as he lay broken and alone, that truth felt hollow. As the last Kreldoran dropship lifted off, leaving him to the mercy of the approaching Mechan, Zarek felt something he had never experienced before: betrayal. He had given everything to the Hive, had fought and bled for his people, and this was his reward: to die alone on a foreign world. The ground trembled as Mechon walkers approached. Zarek gripped his plasma rifle tightly, determined to take as many of the machines with him as he could. If this was to be his end, he would make it one worthy of remembrance in the Hive's chronicles. But as he prepared for his final stand, something unexpected happened. The sound of weapons fire filled the air, but it wasn't coming from the Mechon. Zarek turned his head, his mandibles dropping open in surprise at what he saw. A group of bipedal aliens, smaller than the Kreldoran, but moving with surprising agility, were engaging the Mechon. Their weapons, while primitive compared to Kreldoran technology, seemed surprisingly effective against the machines. Zarek watched in disbelief as the newcomers systematically dismantled the Mechan force that had been advancing on his position. As the last Mechan fell, One of the aliens approached Zarek. It removed its helmet, revealing a face unlike any Zarek had seen before. Pink skin, fur on top of its head, and two forward-facing eyes that looked at him with an emotion he couldn't quite place. "Hey, big guy," the alien said, its mouth moving in a way that showed teeth. "Looks like you could use a hand. Or four, in your case." Zarek stared at the alien, unable to comprehend what was happening. These creatures, whoever they were, had not only defeated the Mechon, but were now offering him aid. It went against everything he had been taught about warfare and the nature of different species. "Who? What are you?" Zarek managed to ask, his translator struggling to form the alien words. The creature's mouth curved upwards in what Zarek would later learn was called a smile. "We're humans, friend, and it looks like you're coming with us." As the other humans approached, preparing to move him, Zarek felt his world shift. Everything he had known, everything he had believed in, was being challenged by the actions of these strange aliens. As consciousness began to fade, one thought echoed through Zarek's mind. Why would they save me? It was a question that would change everything. Part 2. Unexpected Saviors. Consciousness returned to Zarek in waves, each one bringing with it a fresh surge of pain and confusion. The familiar scents of his own kind were absent, replaced by strange, antiseptic odors that made his sensory glands twitch. He opened his eyes, blinking against the harsh light, and found himself in an unfamiliar environment. The room was small, utilitarian, with strange equipment lining the walls. Zarek realized he was lying on some sort of medical bed, his injured body held in place by energy fields. Panic began to rise in his chest. Had he been captured by the Mechon? Was this some kind of experimental lab? "Easy there, big fella," a voice said, startling Zarek. He turned his head to see one of the bipedal aliens, humans, he remembered, approaching him. This one wore different clothing than the warriors he had seen on the battlefield, with symbols he didn't recognize adorning its chest. "Where am I?" Zarek demanded, his translator struggling to form the alien words. "What have you done to me?" The human held up its hands in a gesture Zarek didn't understand. "You're safe. You're on board the UES Horizon, a human starship. We've been treating your injuries." The human's face contorted into what Zarek would later learn was a concerned expression. "You were in pretty bad shape when we found you." Zarek's mind reeled. He was on an alien ship, surrounded by a species he knew nothing about. It went against every instinct, every teaching he had ever received. "Why?" he asked, his voice a low rumble. "Why did you bring me here? What do you want from me?" The human's face did that strange upward curve again, a smile. Zarek reminded himself. "Want from you? Nothing. We saw someone in trouble, and we helped. That's what humans do." The concept was so foreign to Zarek that for a moment, he was sure his translator had malfunctioned. Help without expectation of reward. It went against everything he knew about interspecies interactions. Before Zarek could respond, the door to the medical bay slid open, and another human entered. This one carried itself differently, with an air of authority that Zarek immediately recognized. "I see our guest is awake," the newcomer said, approaching Zarek's bed. "I'm Captain Sarah Chen of the UES Horizon. How are you feeling?" Zarek's mandibles clicked in agitation. "I am functional," he replied, unsure of how to interact with these aliens. In Kreldoran society, showing weakness was unacceptable, but he was clearly at their mercy. "I do not understand. Why have you brought me here?" "I am your enemy." Captain Chen's expression became serious. "Are you?" "Last I checked, we were both fighting the Mechon. That makes us allies in my book." Zarek's compound eyes narrowed. "The Kreldoran do not ally with lesser species. We conquer or destroy." To Zarek's surprise, Captain Chen laughed. "Well, you're not doing much conquering or destroying at the moment, are you? And as for lesser species, I think you'll find humans are full of surprises." The captain's demeanor changed, becoming more businesslike. Here's the situation. We're on a scouting mission deep in Mechon-controlled space. We can't take you back to Kreldoran territory without compromising our mission. And frankly, I'm not sure your people would welcome you back anyway. Zarek felt a cold dread settle in his stomach. The captain was right. To return to the hive after being rescued by aliens would be a disgrace worse than death. He would be exiled at best, executed at worst. So, Captain Chen continued, you have a choice. We can drop you off at the nearest neutral station, or you can stay with us for the duration of our mission. Help us fight the Mechon, and we'll figure out what to do with you after. Zarek's mind raced. The thought of working alongside aliens, especially ones as physically unimposing as humans, went against everything he had been taught. But the alternative, being cast adrift in an uncaring galaxy, was equally unpalatable. I will stay, Zarek said finally, the words feeling strange in his mouth. But do not expect me to adopt your weak, sentimental ways. I am a warrior of the Kreldoran. I fight. Nothing more. Captain Chen nodded, that strange smile appearing on her face again. Fair enough. Rest up, warrior. You'll need your strength. With that, she turned and left the medical bay, leaving Zarek alone with his thoughts. Over the next few days, as Zarek's injuries healed, he observed the humans with a mixture of curiosity and disdain. Their behavior was baffling to him. They laughed, they argued, they showed emotions openly, all things that would be seen as signs of weakness in Kreldoran society. Most perplexing of all was their insistence on trying to make him feel welcome. They brought him food, engaged him in conversation, and even tried to teach him something called poker. Zarek rebuffed most of these attempts at friendliness, but he couldn't help but be intrigued by their persistence. One human in particular, a young soldier named Jack Martinez, seemed determined to break through Zarek's shell. Come on, big guy, Jack said one day, entering the room Zarek had been assigned. You can't stay cooped up in here forever. Let me show you around the ship. Zarek's first instinct was to refuse, but curiosity got the better of him. As Jack led him through the corridors of the horizon, Zarek was struck by how different it was from a Kreldoran vessel. Where Kreldoran ships were all harsh angles and utilitarian design, the horizon seemed almost comfortable. Crew members nodded or waved as they passed, showing none of the fear or deference Zarek was accustomed to. And this, Jack said proudly, leading Zarek into a large open area, is the mess hall. Best food in this arm of the galaxy. Well, only food in this arm of the galaxy, but you know what I mean. Zarek looked around, taking in the sight of humans, eating, talking, and laughing together. It was so different from the regimented, silent meals of the Kreldoran. Your people socialize during nutrient consumption, he asked, confusion evident in his voice. Jack laughed. Yeah, we call it hanging out. It's how we bond, you know. Share stories, joke around, keeps morale up. Zarek's mandibles clicked thoughtfully. In Kreldoran society, such behavior would be seen as a waste of time and resources. Jack's expression sobered. And how's that working out for your people? No offense, but from what we've seen, the Kreldoran aren't exactly winning this war. Zarek felt a surge of anger at the human's words, but he couldn't deny the truth in them. The Kreldoran, for all their vaunted strength and discipline, were losing ground to the Mechon. And here were these humans, so seemingly soft and emotional, yet they had saved him when his own people had left him for dead. As they continued their tour, Zarek found himself asking more questions, his curiosity overriding his ingrained disdain. He learned about human history, their rapid expansion into space, and their encounters with other alien races. The more he learned, the more he realized how little he truly knew about the galaxy beyond the rigid confines of Kreldoran society. Their tour was interrupted by a sudden alarm. Red lights flashed throughout the ship, and Captain Chen's voice came over the intercom. All hands to battle stations. Mechon fleet detected on long-range scanners. Jack's demeanor changed instantly. the jovial tour guide replaced by a focused soldier. "Looks like you'll get to see how we humans fight," he said to Zarek, his voice tight with anticipation. "Ready to show these Meccan what you're made of." For the first time since his rescue, Zarek felt a sense of purpose. He was a warrior, after all, and the Meccan were the enemy. "Lead the way, human," he growled, his four hands clenching into fists. "Let us bring death to the machines." As they raced towards the armory, Zarek felt a strange mixture of emotions. Excitement for the coming battle, yes, but also something else. A growing respect for these humans who had saved him, and a nagging doubt about everything he had been taught. The battle that was to come would not just be against the Meccan, Zarek realized. It would be a battle against his own preconceptions, against the very foundations of his beliefs. As the horizon prepared for combat, Zarek steeled himself for a fight that would change him in ways he could not yet imagine. Learning to trust. The UES horizon shuddered as another Meccan energy blast struck its shields. Zarek stood on the bridge, his massive form dwarfing the human crew members around him. His compound eyes darted between the holographic displays, taking in the chaotic dance of ships. The UES horizon shuddered as another Meccan energy blast struck its shields. Zarek stood on the bridge, his massive form dwarfing the human crew members around him. His compound eyes darted between the holographic displays, taking in the chaotic dance of ships and weapon fire that surrounded them. Captain Chen's voice rang out, clear and commanding. "Evasive maneuvers. Target the lead Meccan cruiser with everything we've got." Zarek watched in fascination as the human crew worked in perfect synchronization. There was none of the rigid hierarchy he was used to in Kreldoran ships. Here, crew members called out suggestions, shared information freely, and even disagreed with their captain, all without breaking the flow of battle. "This is madness," Zarek muttered, his mandibles clicking in agitation. "How can you fight effectively with such disorder?" Jack, who stood nearby manning a weapon station, flashed him a quick grin. "It's not disorder, big guy. It's teamwork. Everyone's input matters here." Before Zarek could respond, the ship rocked violently. Alarms blared as a voice called out, "Direct hit to engineering. We're losing power to the main engines." Captain Chen's face hardened. "We can't take another hit like that. Prepare to..." "Wait," Zarek interrupted, stepping forward. In Kreldoran society, interrupting a superior would be grounds for severe punishment, but he pushed aside his ingrained hesitation. "I may be able to help. Kreldoran physiology allows us to withstand environments that would be lethal to humans." Chen looked at him, her eyes narrowing in consideration. "What are you proposing?" "I can enter the damaged section, assess the situation, and perhaps effect repairs," Zarek said. "It would be more efficient than risking human lives." For a moment, the bridge was silent save for the continued alarms. Then Chen nodded. "Do it. Jack, go with him. Guide him to engineering and coordinate with the repair teams." As Zarek and Jack raced through the corridors, the Kreldoran felt a strange mix of emotions. Part of him was excited for the chance to prove his worth, to show these humans the superiority of Kreldoran biology. But another part, a part he was less comfortable acknowledging, felt a growing sense of belonging. They reached the damaged section, and Zarek immediately saw the problem. A ruptured power conduit was venting plasma, filling the area with deadly radiation. Without hesitation, he stepped into the breach. "Zarek, wait," Jack called out, his voice filled with concern. "The radiation levels in their air. Survivable. For me," Zarek replied, already moving towards the damaged conduit. "Direct me. Tell me what needs to be done." What followed was unlike anything Zarek had experienced before. As he worked to repair the conduit, Jack's voice guided him through the unfamiliar systems. The human didn't order or demand, but explained, suggested, and even asked for Zarek's input when faced with unexpected complications. It was exhilarating. For the first time in his life, Zarek felt like more than just a warrior or a cog in the great Kreldoran war machine. He felt like an individual whose skills and thoughts mattered. As the last connection snapped into place and power surged back through the ship, Zarek felt a sense of accomplishment that went beyond mere duty. He had not just followed orders. He had solved a problem, had contributed in a way uniquely his own. Emerging from the damaged section, Zarek was met by a grinning Jack. "You did it, big guy. That was amazing." Before Zarek could respond, he was surprised to find other crew members gathering around him, patting him on the back, or at least as high as they could reach, and offering words of thanks and congratulation. It was so different from the stoic acknowledgement of duty he was used to among his own people. I merely did what was necessary," Zarek said, feeling strangely uncomfortable with the praise. "Yeah, and you did it awesomely," Jack replied. "Come on, let's get back to the bridge. I bet the captain will want to hear about this firsthand." As they made their way back, Zarek found himself reflecting on the experience. The human's willingness to trust him, an alien and former enemy, with such a critical task was baffling. Yet it had brought out something in him he hadn't known existed, a desire to be part of something larger than himself, something beyond mere conquest or survival. On the bridge, they found the battle had turned in their favor. With the horizon back at full power, the human ship had managed to destroy the Meccan cruiser and scatter its escorts. The crew was celebrating, their joy palpable in the air. Captain Chen approached Zarek, her face serious but her eyes warm. "I hear we have you to thank for saving our ship," she said. "That was brave of you, Zarek. Thank you." Zarek felt a strange warmth in his chest at her words. "You are welcome, Captain. I am glad I could be of assistance." Chen smiled. "You know, when we first brought you aboard, I wasn't sure if this arrangement would work out. But you've proven me wrong. You're not just a guest anymore, Zarek. You're part of this crew now, if you want to be." The offer hung in the air, heavy with implications. Part of Zarek, the part steeped in Kreldoran doctrine, wanted to refuse, to reassert his separate identity, his superiority. But another part, a part that was growing stronger with each passing day, yearned to accept. I would be honored, Captain," Zarek said finally, the words feeling strange yet right on his tongue. As the crew cheered and Jack clapped him on the back, Zarek realized that something fundamental had shifted within him. He was still Kreldoran, still a warrior, but he was also becoming something more, something that perhaps he had always been meant to be. The journey ahead would not be easy. There would be more battles, more challenges, both external and internal. But for the first time since he had been rescued, Zarek felt truly alive. He had found not just allies, but friends. Not just a mission, but a purpose. As the horizon set course for its next destination, Zarek stood among the humans, no longer feeling like an outsider. He was part of something now, something that defied easy categorization, something that he was beginning to suspect might just be the key to defeating the Meccan and saving the galaxy. The adventure was only beginning, and Zarek, former Kreldoran warrior and newly minted crew member of the UES Horizon, was ready to face whatever came next. Together. The turning point. Weeks passed, and Zarek found himself settling into a routine aboard the UES Horizon. The once alien environment had become, if not entirely comfortable, at least familiar. He had learned to navigate the ship's corridors, to understand the nuances of human interaction, and even to appreciate some aspects of their culture. The concept of movie night, in particular, had become a favorite, though he still struggled to understand the appeal of what humans called comedy. But comfort, Zarek reminded himself, was dangerous. Comfort led to complacency, and complacency led to defeat. So he pushed himself harder, spending long hours in the ship's training facilities, honing his combat skills, and studying human tactics. It was during one such training session that the alert came. Zarek was sparring with Jack and a few other human soldiers, teaching them Kreldoran hand-to-hand combat techniques, when Captain Chen's voice came over the intercom. All hands, battle stations. We've detected a Mechan staging area in the Epsilon Eridani system. We're going in. Zarek felt a surge of anticipation. This was what he had been preparing for, a chance to strike back at the machines that had caused so much destruction. As they raced to their positions, Jack grinned at Zarek. "Ready to show these tin cans what you're made of, big guy." Zarek's mandibles clicked in what the humans had come to recognize as his version of a smile. "Always Jack. Though I suspect the Mechan already know what Kreldorans are made of. It is time they learned to fear humans as well." The horizon dropped out of FTL on the edge of the Epsilon Eridani system. The holographic display on the bridge showed a bustling Mechan operation. Factories, shipyards, and a massive fleet of warships in various stages of construction. By the void, Zarek breathed, his compound eyes widening at the sight. This is no mere staging area. This is a full production facility. Captain Chen nodded grimly. "If we can take this out, we'll deal a serious blow to the Mechan war effort. But it won't be easy. We're outnumbered and outgunned." "Then we must be clever," Zarek said, stepping forward. "Captain, with your permission, I have a suggestion." Chen raised an eyebrow. "I'm all ears, Zarek." Zarek outlined his plan quickly. It was risky, combining Kreldoran battle doctrine with human unpredictability. But if it worked, it could give them the edge they needed. Chen listened intently, her face thoughtful. When Zarek finished, she nodded slowly. "It's crazy," she said, "but it just might work. All right, people, you heard the plan. Let's make it happen." What followed was a battle unlike any Zarek had ever experienced. The horizon darted in and out of the Mechan formation, its human crew pulling off maneuvers that would have been considered suicidal in Kreldoran tactics. Zarek, commanding a small strike team, used the chaos to infiltrate the main Mechan factory. As they fought their way through waves of robotic defenders, Zarek found himself marveling at the humans' adaptability. They worked seamlessly as a team, covering each other's weaknesses and amplifying each other's strengths. And they included Zarek in this dance of combat, as if he had always been part of their unit. They reached the factory's core, where Zarek began planting the explosives that would destroy the facility. But as he worked, a massive Mechan guardian emerged from a hidden bay. It was unlike anything they had encountered before, a towering construct of metal and energy, bristling with weapons. "Fall back!" Zarek roared, pushing the nearest humans behind cover as the guardian opened fire. Energy beams scorched the walls, and missiles detonated all around them. Zarek knew they were in trouble. The guardian was too powerful, too well-armored for their weapons to penetrate. They needed more time to finish planting the explosives, but the guardian wasn't giving them that time. In that moment, Zarek made a decision that would have been unthinkable to him just months ago. "Cover me," he shouted to the humans. "I will draw its fire." Before anyone could stop him, Zarek leaped from cover, all four of his arms brandishing weapons. He charged directly at the guardian, dodging its attacks with a grace that belied his large form. "Zarek? No." Jack's voice crackled over the comm. "You can't take that thing alone." "I do not intend to," Zarek replied, his voice calm despite the chaos around him. "I intend to give you the time you need. Complete the mission, Jack. That is an order." As Zarek engaged the Guardian in close combat, he could hear the humans working frantically behind him, planting the remaining explosives. He took hit after hit, his armor cracking, his body screaming in pain. But he did not falter. In his mind, Zarek saw flashes of his life, his training on the Kreldoran homeworld, the countless battles he had fought, the moment the humans had saved him on that forgotten battlefield. He realized that everything had led to this moment, this choice to sacrifice himself for others. Just as Zarek felt his strength failing, just as the Guardian prepared to deliver a final, crushing blow, a familiar voice rang out. Hey, ugly. Pick on someone your own size. Jack and the other humans had finished their task and now joined Zarek in facing the Guardian. They moved as one, a seamless team of different species united in purpose. Together, they brought the massive machine down. As the Guardian fell, its lights flickering out, Zarek felt a wave of exhaustion wash over him. He stumbled, only to be caught by Jack and the others. "Come on, big guy," Jack said, his voice tight with concern. "We're not leaving you behind. Not now, not ever." They half-carried, half-dragged Zarek back to their shuttle as the factory began to explode around them. As they lifted off, watching the Mechon facility crumble in a series of massive detonations, Zarek felt a profound sense of change within himself. He had been willing to die, not for glory or for the abstract concept of duty, but for these humans who had become more than comrades. They were his friends, his family. In that moment of self-sacrifice, Zarek realized he had become something his old self would never have understood, a part of humanity. As the shuttle docked with the horizon, and they limped away from the devastated Mechan base, Zarek looked at the humans around him, battered, exhausted, but alive and victorious. He saw in their eyes the same emotions he felt: relief, pride, and a deep, unshakable bond. Captain Chen met them in the hangar bay, her face showing a mix of joy and concern. "You did it," she said, her voice filled with pride. "You all did it." Zarek, that was something else. Zarek, leaning heavily on Jack for support, managed to straighten himself. "No, Captain," he said, his voice weak but clear. "We did it, together." As the medical team rushed to tend to their wounds, Zarek knew that this battle had been more than just a victory against the Mechon. It had been the forging of something new, something powerful, a union of Kreldoran strength and human spirit. The war was far from over, but in that moment, looking at the faces of his human comrades, Zarek felt something he had never experienced before: hope. Hope for the future, hope for victory, and hope for a galaxy where different species could stand together against any threat. The turning point had come, not just in the war, but in Zarek's very being, and he was ready to face whatever came next, not as a lone Kreldoran warrior, but as part of humanity's family. A new alliance. The aftermath of the battle at Epsilon Eridani reverberated across the galaxy. The destruction of the Mechon production facility had dealt a significant blow to the machine army's expansion plans, and news of the victory spread rapidly through both human and alien communication channels. For Zarek, however, the most profound changes were personal. As he recovered in the Horizon's medical bay, he found himself inundated with visitors, not just Jack and the members of his strike team, but crew members from all over the ship. They came to thank him, to express their admiration, and simply to talk. It was during one of these visits that Zarek realized just how much he had changed. A young ensign was recounting the battle, describing Zarek's charge against the Mechan Guardian with awe in her voice. "I do not understand," Zarek interrupted, his mandibles clicking in confusion. "Why do you speak of my actions with such reverence? I merely did what was necessary for our survival." The ensign looked at him, surprise evident on her face. "But that's exactly it, Zarek. You were willing to sacrifice yourself for us. For aliens, that's not just bravery, that's heroism." Zarek was silent for a long moment, processing her words. In Kreldoran society, sacrifice was expected. It was not praised or revered. It was simply the duty of a warrior. But here, among the humans, his actions were seen as something extraordinary. "I thank you," he said finally, feeling a warmth in his chest that had nothing to do with his injuries. "But I did not act alone. It was our combined efforts that brought us victory." The ensign smiled. "And that's why you fit in so well here, Zar." The ensign smiled. "And that's why you fit in so well here, Zarek. You understand what it means to be part of a team." As she left, Zarek found himself deep in thought. The concept of fitting in was new to him. In Kreldoran society, one did not fit in. One simply existed to serve the hive. But here, among the humans, he had found a place where he was valued not just for his strength or his skills, but for who he was. Days passed, and as Zarek regained his strength, he began to hear whispers of something big in the works. Captain Chen was in constant communication with human high command, and there was an air of anticipation throughout the ship. Finally, as Zarek was cleared to return to duty, Chen called a ship-wide meeting. The crew gathered in the Horizon's largest hangar bay. A sea of faces all turned towards their captain. Zarek stood near the front, towering over the humans around him, but no longer feeling out of place. "People of the Horizon," Chen began, her voice carrying across the silent hangar. "What we achieved at Epsilon Eridani was more than just a military victory. It was proof of what we can accomplish when we work together, regardless of our species or our origins." She paused, her eyes scanning the crowd before settling on Zarek. "Our success has not gone unnoticed. The Alliance Council has proposed a bold new initiative, one that could change the course of this war." A murmur ran through the crowd. Zarek felt a tingle of anticipation run down his spine. "They're calling it the Xenotype Integration Program," Chen continued. "The goal is to create mixed-species crews and combat units, combining the strengths of different races to create a force the Mechon can't predict or counter." The hangar erupted in excited chatter. Zarek stood still, his mind racing. What Chen was describing was revolutionary and completely contrary to everything he had been taught about warfare and interspecies relations. "But that's not all," Chen said, raising her hand for silence. "The Council has requested that we serve as the prototype for this program, and they've asked for a liaison. Someone who can bridge the gap between species, who has proven their ability to adapt and work alongside those different from themselves." Chen's eyes locked onto Zarek. "Zarek, they've asked for you." For a moment, Zarek couldn't process what he was hearing. Him, a liaison? The very idea would have been laughable just months ago, but now, he stepped forward, aware of every eye in the hangar upon him. "Captain," he said, his voice carrying clearly despite its alien timbre, "I am honored by this request. But I must ask, why me? Surely there are others more qualified, with more experience in diplomacy." Chen smiled. "Experience isn't everything, Zarek. What you've shown, your ability to overcome ingrained prejudices, to adapt to new ways of thinking, to form bonds with those vastly different from yourself, that's what we need. You're living proof that this idea can work." Zarek was silent for a long moment, his compound eyes scanning the faces of the crew. His crew. He saw encouragement, hope, and something else. Acceptance. These humans, who had once been his enemies, now looked at him as one of their own. "I accept," Zarek said finally, his voice firm. "If my experiences can help forge a stronger alliance against the Mechon, then I will do whatever is necessary." The hangar erupted in cheers. Jack pushed his way through the crowd to clap Zarek on the back, grinning widely. "I knew you had it in you, big guy." As the excitement died down, and the crew began to disperse, discussing the implications of this new program, Captain Chen approached Zarek. "There's one more thing," she said, her voice low. "The Council wants us to make contact with the Kreldoran High Command. They believe that if we can bring your people into this alliance, it could tip the scales decisively in our favor." Zarek felt a chill run through him. Return to his people. After everything that had happened, "Captain," he said slowly, "you must understand. In Kreldoran society, what I have done, being saved by aliens, fighting alongside them, it would be seen as the highest form of dishonor. They may well try to execute me on sight." Chen nodded gravely. "I understand the risk. But Zarek, you've changed. You've shown that change is possible. If there's even a chance that you can open a dialogue with your people, show them that there's another way. Isn't it worth trying?" Zarek looked out over the hangar bay, at the humans bustling about their duties. He thought of everything he had learned, everything he had become. He thought of the Mechon, the existential threat that loomed over all organic life in the galaxy. "You are right," he said finally. "It is worth the risk." For too long, the Kreldoran have isolated themselves, seeing all other species as potential conquests or threats. If we are to survive this war, that must change. He turned back to Chen, determination glinting in his compound eyes. "I will speak to my people, and I will make them listen." Chen smiled, relief evident on her face. "Thank you, Zarek. I know this won't be easy, but you won't be alone. We'll be with you every step of the way." As Chen walked away to make preparations, Zarek found himself reflecting on the journey that had brought him to this point. From a rigid, xenophobic warrior to a bridge between species, advocating for unity and cooperation. The path ahead would be challenging, fraught with danger and uncertainty. Convincing the Kreldoran to join the alliance would be the greatest test of his life. But as he looked around at the humans of the horizon, his friends, his new family, Zarek felt a surge of confidence. He had changed. He had grown. And if he could change, then perhaps his people could too. The Mechon threat still loomed large, a shadow over the entire galaxy. But for the first time, Zarek felt true hope. Not just for victory, but for a future where different species could stand together, their differences becoming strengths rather than divisions. As the horizon prepared to embark on its most important mission yet, Zarek stood tall, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. He was no longer just a Kreldoran warrior, nor was he simply a member of a human crew. He was something new, a symbol of what could be achieved when different species came together. The war against the Mechon had brought untold destruction, but it had also created something beautiful, a chance for unity, for understanding, for a new kind of civilization. And Zarek, once an outcast, now found himself at the very heart of this new beginning. As the horizon's engines hummed to life, preparing to jump to the Kreldoran home system, Zarek felt a mix of anxiety and excitement. The future was uncertain, but one thing was clear: whatever happened, they would face it together, human and Kreldoran, and whatever other species joined their cause, united against the darkness that threatened them all. The stars stretched into lines as the horizon jumped to FTL, carrying with it the hopes of not just humanity, not just the Kreldoran, but of all organic life in the galaxy. The next chapter of their story was about to begin, and Zarek was ready to help write it.